Hello and welcome back to another episode of Orange Juice, news and notes from around the world of insoles. I am your co-host, Owen Kenoy, and back with us we have my mother, Marsha Kenoy. We are a mother-son duo who owns a family business, or own and operate a family business based around insoles. And today we're bringing you a very relevant topic to our product, and a question we get a lot of the times about foot fatigue versus foot pain and that sort of thing. But before we hop into too much, we do just want to recognize where we're at in the year. Nationwide, as of recording, there's a pretty widespread snowstorm going on. So if you are being challenged currently with your New Year's goals and whatnot, we encourage you to check out our last episode. Marsha, do you want to fill us in a little bit if folks didn't catch our last episode?
Yeah, I had to think for a second. Yeah, we did it on just motivation versus discipline on your goals. And I think that's a really good point, is the weather. If you were super motivated to get going, it's hard to be disciplined when the weather is not great outside. But we talked about how do you just celebrate little wins. So maybe that day you actually were like, forget it, I'm going to wrap up, get outside, get at least a mile in of steps, or at least get to the gym. You know, it might not be as much as you want to do, but you just got to keep pushing towards it and getting yourself disciplined and get the little wins and say it's okay to not 100% nail it in an environment where you're, kind of up against the wall, so to speak. So yeah, so we kind of talked through that, and we gave examples and other focus around that particular topic on how to push through your new year. So it was really good. Mallory produced it and also was on the episode with myself, and she really did a deep dive more on the discipline piece of it and comparing it to motivation. So yeah, good point, because we're starting February 2nd, and it does feel a little panicky when you're like, shoot, 1 month's already gone this year. Like, I blinked.
100%. So if you're feeling the winter blues, feel free to check out that episode as well. Or if you have been feeling a little more motivated, this topic could be more relevant to you, not necessarily, but if you have been getting moving in the new year or just in the past, and start to ask yourself, is that foot pain I'm experiencing, or is that maybe just foot fatigue and more of like a general item? We want to talk about that and just kind of give you some more information on some cues as to whether it could be fatigue or maybe more seriously actual pain. So this topic actually came about because we just recently released last week our Orange Juice news article. So this would maybe be a good opportunity just to let our listeners know that if you are looking for more information outside of the podcast, we do release weekly blog articles on our website. And this one was just released last week, again, explaining foot fatigue versus foot pain. And we figured it would be a great opportunity to also bring it to you in a podcast and just give you a little bit more info. But kicking it over to Marsha, why would it really matter, Marsha, if someone is experiencing foot pain or foot fatigue?
Did you say why would it matter?
Yeah, why would it matter if someone is experiencing foot pain versus foot fatigue, or what's kind of the difference, or why is this relevant?
Well, I would say it's interesting because for a lot of people, if you don't kind of start thinking about it now, you could really lead into a very deep injury that you could, would be hard to come back from. So I would say, like, fatigue is basically, say you're going on vacation and you're on a trip and you're doing all this sightseeing, right? And your feet just aren't used to it. And at the end of the day, after, say, you get 15,000 steps or 12,000, but in a normal day, you only get 5,000, your feet are definitely fatigued because of this new kind of push or experience that they're having that they weren't ready for, versus, an injury. Like you do that for multiple days and your feet are just like, hey, I can do it a day and get a little fatigued, but multiple days can lead to an injury if you don't have the proper shoe, the proper support, or your body just wasn't ready for it, or you didn't build up to those steps. And I'd also say, I even heard a couple guys when I was on the golf course Friday talking about plantar fasciitis. Like they finally just wouldn't stop golfing. They didn't want to, even though they started hurting 2 weeks ago. They're like, oh, it's just, I'll get through it. It's just because I just started golfing. When really he had turned and pivoted and he has plantar fasciitis. He didn't really pay attention to your body, the messages it's sending you after multiple days. And now, he's battling through that. So it's different in everybody, and it's different. This episode is also key to any body part. It could be your hand, your shoulder, your knee. So, but today we're going to specifically talk about feet. But yeah, I would just tee that up, Owen. That's kind of the way I think about it.
Such a good point. And for me, I turned 30 this year, and I know so many people will be like, oh, you're so young, but also I am getting that age where you are starting to feel more of these aches and pains and fatigue. And it is important to ask yourself, hey, is this normal, the pain or fatigue or whatever that I'm experiencing? Or is this something that I could maybe address with rest or support or whatever it may be? So the bottom line is you should feel good throughout your day. And if you don't, ask yourself, what's maybe going on and if there's something you can do to help that. So to break it down a little bit more, we talked about fatigue versus pain, but fatigue is going to be a more general pain in your feet, or I shouldn't use the word pain. Fatigue is going to be a more general sensation in your feet, dull, kind of more achy, and it often goes away with rest, and it almost just feels like your feet are just overall tired. Now, pain is a little bit different, where it's usually more of a sharp or pinpointed, sensation. It's often usually more in like one foot versus the other, or in one localized spot in the foot. And often it's not just resolving itself with general rest or maybe like some more support or just like easing off your activities. This is something that has been consistent. A lot of the times it can also be a good cue that it's more of like a pain or an injury, so to speak, opposed to just general fatigue, is when you're waking up in the morning and it's especially bad. So if you do feel it during that time in the morning, it might be worth, again, really resting and seeing if there's a couple things you can do about it, which we'll talk about, or maybe even seek medical advice. Because again, the bottom line is you don't have to go through life. Well, most people are fortunate where they don't have to go through life with these aches and pains, and there are things that you can do to address it. So again, just to recap, fatigue is going to be more general, especially think about, what you did the day before if you're especially busy or active or whatever, and pain is going to be more of like a sharp sensation and localized to a certain area and does not go away with rest.
Or ice.
Or ice or support, right? Or heat or any of the above.
That's where my mind goes, is give me the heating pad or the bag of ice, and if it doesn't solve, then you definitely need to do more. And I'm glad you said about medical too, because I think sometimes we wait too long when maybe we could get some medical attention. There's always those virtual, quick, 15-minute calls. You can grab a doctor and you just touch base early on. And we definitely encourage that through any of these health topics that we talk about, is to include your medical.
You know what I thought of though is I don't know how unique this is. I think it's super unique, but I know at Playmakers we actually talked about Playmakers being the store that we essentially started from. Tom and Marsha are owners there, and that's kind of what got us into feet and insoles. But at Playmakers, they do a free injury clinic. So if you are in the Lansing area, you can go there, and they have orthopedists, physical therapists, and whatnot, kind of varying professions depending on the week and whatnot. But you can seek free advice. So I think there are, maybe just some other resources in areas that you can look at that aren't necessarily like setting up a full-blown orthopedic, evaluation, so to speak. But yeah, highly encourage you just to do some research and see if there are, again, people that are willing to connect with you and at least point you in the right direction.
That's a really good point. And when you talk to these medical professionals, usually it's on Wednesday night, is what we call doc night. A lot of them will talk about how not only there, but they volunteer at other places too. So I would just search it out in your community. That's a very valid point. But so one thing we wanted to talk about is kind of like maybe some ahas or what might cause a fatigue or the pain specifically. And some things to think about is like your everyday work environment. Is it changing? So I think about someone who might start a retail job, and now we're on hard pavement all day. If your retail store is like a concrete floor, like out of nowhere. So yeah, you're going to be fatigued, but you're also going to want to be on full alert of, like, you could shift to pain if you're not getting the right shoe and the right support. The other thing I think of is like, working, like if you're outside and you get to work on the ground, like the ground is more forgiving. So that's just a better environment for your knees and, that type of thing, or a clay type of base. Versus like we talked about, concrete, like a factory worker, or even construction, you see them on the roads. Like all of that hard surface can really put a pounding on your body versus versus working on all carpet. So just think about, some of this is the environment underneath your feet. And we always say our philosophy starts from your feet up. So we talk about what's under your feet, which is the ground, what type of surface. And then we can talk about the shoe and the insert and the support within the shoe. But I would just tee that up, that has a lot to do with pain versus fatigue that you don't think about.
100%, job-wise, and then also even just like general activities. If you tell yourself, hey, I'm going to get into running, for example, there's a lot more impact on your body with running that you just may not be used to. Or maybe it's, you started playing pickleball or doing, whatever else. There are so many different things that you could be doing on your feet differently. But yeah, if your body's not used to that impact, that's where you'll see some of the fatigue, and that fatigue can turn into pain. So that's why it's important to keep that front of mind. So not all foot pain, but so many problems with the feet, really even ankles, knees, hips, and lower back as well, stems from ultimately like this idea of overpronation, which we've talked about. If you have flat feet, you probably overpronate. So if people say I have flat feet, the problem with flat feet is that you're overpronating, not that your foot is actually flat. But to get into more specifically what that means is when you go to step down on your arches, if your arches are flat or even just weak, they won't be able to support the full weight of your body. So what they do is they start to naturally roll inward. In that motion can sometimes create excessive stress on what is called the plantar fascia, which is underneath the foot, but also on your calves and up to your hamstrings, your quad muscles, and again, the whole chain. So not having a strong foundation underneath your foot, or if your foot isn't equipped to handle these new activities, could lead to this essentially misalignment or collapsing of your arches. So really your body starts compensating. Pain might show up in your feet first, but again, the stress might travel through the rest of your body as well with that.
Well, and I think one of the other things I just learned the other day, there's my concierge doctor down here, she's always training for Ironman, and she's been doing it for years, but she's really struggling with plantar fasciitis, so she thought. So she sent a video to your dad of her running, and what he caught on to is a lot of what we don't realize too is the way we step. So you should be stepping equally, right, when the foot hits, and she was bringing her heel in first and striking that way. And then another video we were looking at is someone else who'd sent it in, they're striking from their foot for their toes. So these are really simple things. Even if you're walking every day, how you're striking your foot down is something to think about that can really lead to a pain situation when you're doing that over time. But it's also the foundation, but it's also the way you're landing with your feet.
Such a good point. And, I guess the overarching message there is form is really important. So if you are doing, like a physical activity, I can guarantee you that there's a quote unquote proper way or a form that you can look up or get advised on. And just even doing something as simple as making sure your form is proper when you're running, when you're walking. I know on the Peloton, whenever I'm taking classes, they're always talking about your form and making sure that you have proper posture and whatnot. So it's across pretty much everything you do one way or another. So just making sure that form is something top of mind too is such an easy starting point for something like that.
Yeah, and then I would say it's kind of interesting. So I had a gentleman come out, and they do like an annual checkup on our air conditioner and heater, which I'm sure everyone does. So this kid comes out, and up where the closet is for the heater in the house, he saw a box of orange insoles. And I think he heard me on a call, and then he was just like, "Can I just ask what these are about?" So I'm like telling him, "What's that?"
I've been there. I feel like everyone's always so intrigued once they see them. But go ahead.
And he heard me talk about plantar fasciitis. He just, you and I, someone must have been on a call with me in this conversation. So anyway, I go, "Oh my gosh, what's your shoe size?" And I don't have many in that closet, but I couldn't believe it. The 2 full length I had, one of them was his size. So he pops them in. He's like, I really want to try these right now. He actually put them into a cowboy boot, which I was surprised that it was still comfortable, because sometimes that can get very tight fitting. There's not a lot of volume in a cowboy boot. But he has like a construction type heel, like what do you call those, metal toed cowboy
There's
boots?
no right or wrong way, right? There's
Right.
all sorts of different ways that work for people.
Because of his foot wasn't real thick. He had a thinner foot. But so he puts it in, and then not even 20 minutes later, he comes in, he goes, "Ma'am, can I ask you a question?" I go, "Well, sure." He goes, "Do these insoles make you stand up straighter?" I go, "Well," and I'm laughing inside because we talk about it, right? And I never heard anyone just say it like that. But because of our deep heel cup, we kind of, you're rocking back and your heel's going into that deep heel cup. And that's exactly what it's doing. It's straightening you out. It's forcing you to stand up straight, which helps your full body alignment. Your hips, your back, your knee pain, all of that, when it's aligned, that's not going to happen. So it was super cute. I don't know if, I know I videotaped him saying it because I had to send it to you and your sister, because I was like, for social media, I love when someone can just say it. It's just that easy. And then an hour later, he's like, "I cannot believe the difference. My back," because he was a wrestler, so he had a really bad like shoulder situation. He goes, "Oh my gosh, I just feel so good." And I told him, sometimes it takes a couple hours to get used to a different kind of support underneath your foot, but he just wasn't taking them out. He's like, "I'm wearing these. I'm going with it." So I would, I tee that up because the deep heel cup, it's key under your foot. Good arch is key under your foot, right, Owen? The correct shoe. I mean, there are these basic things that can just keep you in the fatigue mode, just help support a day. You might just go out and do all those steps, so you might just come back fatigued because you had the right shoe on, you had the right support on. But then to direct over to the pain mode, there's just a lot more that can be involved. You might not have the right support under your arch. You might not have the right type of shoe. You might be switching a new job where now you're on concrete all the time. Things that you've got to be aware of. I'm sure, Owen, you could mention a few more on that front.
Yeah, well, I think just on like a broader scale, to maybe give you an idea of when it might be time to change something or look at, hey, this might be more than fatigue. If it's pain that comes back every day, so that would be an indication that it's obviously just a recurring issue or an issue that's never going away, where sometimes for me, I'll get like occasional pain in my hamstring or occasional foot fatigue or occasional lower back soreness. Like that's just occasional, but none of it has been consistent. So I'm taking it as like, that's just fatigue for me. But if it was showing up on an everyday basis, that's an indication it could be pain. Especially with your feet, if the first steps in the morning come with pain, that's obviously an indication that's probably more than just fatigue. One thing to maybe look at, and we are not diagnosing anything, but a lot of times when you have pain in the morning with your first steps, it's a result of plantar fasciitis or a lack of arch support. And then just like one-sided soreness that doesn't go away with new shoes or rest and that sort of thing. So if it is a more consistent issue, might be time to look at making some adjustments. What are those adjustments, you ask? One could be using insoles to stabilize your foot, exactly like we were just talking about. Your body starts from the ground up, and making sure you have a strong foundation will really help prevent, of course, the foot fatigue, but we haven't been able to help ourselves but talk about the rest of your body as well, because it really all is just a chain. So to only isolate it to your feet wouldn't necessarily be fair. Another thing that you can do though is simply just like rotating your shoes based on your activity. Different shoes have different support systems and are designed for different activities. So if you do have the correct shoe for the correct activity, that is going to go a long way. And then you might need to modify your routines and maybe look at a different way to go about them. So if I'm trying to get into running and I say, hey, I want to train for a half marathon, but just starting out, I'm struggling to get to like a 5K, and it's been a few months and I'm working at it, but my body's just not adjusting. Maybe it's okay to modify. That doesn't mean I can't work up to that half marathon, so to speak, but maybe I need to do some more strength training with my running, or also mix in some swimming to lower the impact on my body, or whatever it may be. So just making sure you're asking yourself, like, hey, is this routine or is this activity the best for me, and am I going to be able to scale how I want to? So those are some adjustments that you could easily make.
I was just thinking is, like, if you're training right now, and I know we all dread the weather and the snow advisory, but actually running on the snow is so good for your knees and your feet because it's giving, right? You're not hitting a hard surface. And I'm going to assume it's an extra good workout because you're pushing into the snow and having to bring your resistance back out. But we also have our new sport insole that's amazing to help with being proactive for with your workout. But one thing I wanted to bring up, and this is one thing that we always talk about, if you have pain in your foot when you wake up in the morning, before you step on your feet, do the alphabet with your foot. Point with your toe, right, Owen? You do the A, B, C, D. Just right there, lay there and motion it out and get the circulation going in your feet and that type of thing before you step down. And that should reduce the impact of when you hit the floor. And then the other thing that is super common that these golfers were even talking about the other day, which was cracking me up, is taking a water bottle, you throw it in the freezer, and then when you pull it out when you're in pain, and you just roll your foot over it to ice it. And I'm a big believer in ice. I'm struggling so hard now, 8 months with the knee injury, and I constantly have to, every other day, my knee will blow up and I've got to ice it. So, but what a difference when I slow down and I ice things, and that can, through that process of fatigue, that can get you out of fatigue a lot faster if you stop to ice and take care of it. But I just thought about that because we always used to say that, or pick up marbles with your toes, I think was the other thing, and put it in a jar. And that's like strengthening your foot at the same time, right, Owen?
Yeah, so with the ankle alphabet, it helps loosen up your plantar fascia, or the muscle in your foot, muscles in your feet, because you haven't used them the entirety of the night, so they're just naturally going to be tightened up. So it loosens it up, so when you do take that first step, it's not so tight and it's ready for a little bit of that impact. And then, yeah, doing things like the marbles, or even like rolling a towel up with your toes, like scrunching it up, so to speak. It helps strengthen your plantar fascia and the muscles in your feet, so that they can better support your daily activities.
And we bring up plantar fasciitis because it's probably one of the number one questions or concerns we'll get in our chat box off of our website is, I've been diagnosed with this, will this help your orange insole? So once again, we stress to go get diagnosed. And then if that is where you're falling or landing, then yes, we believe, orange insoles, we have record of saying it can help people for sure with the deep heel cup arch and the metatarsal pad that we offer within our product. It's all built in, so you're getting it every day, all day.
So with that said, pain is your body's way for asking for help. The earlier you listen, the easier it is to treat that pain. So just make sure you're keeping an eye on it. Most of the time, small changes can make a big difference, like adding some insoles or changing your shoes, and it really can help prevent things before they get worse. But thank you so much for listening. If you do want to learn some more about this topic, like I said, our latest blog release does highlight more on foot fatigue versus foot pain. And if you are interested in our insoles, or figuring out what the best insole is for you, you can take our insole quiz found on our website, or insole finder. Answer a few quick questions, and you'll be given a recommendation that is guaranteed to work. So thanks so much for listening. We hope you picked up a few tips that you can take away and apply to maybe some of your foot fatigue or foot pain, and feel better and do more. So thanks so much. We'll catch you next time on the Orange Juice Podcast.
Stay warm.